Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Azinta, and today I will be presenting my assignment for ED252, Educational Psychology and the Teaching Learning Processes. And the topic of my presentation is critical analysis of learning episode, that is using behavioral, cognitive, and social cultural theories. So, throughout my presentation, I will share real life examples from observing my 4-year-old son Ahan and analyze how these learning episodes align with these three learning theories. And I will also discuss the practical strategies for teachers based on these theories. Um, so, as we all know that learning happens every day, not just in the classroom. Okay, children, they constantly explore, do problem solving, adapt their behaviors, and even during routine activities at home. So observing children, it helps us to understand how they develop and how teachers can plan activities to support their growth effectively. For example, my son Ahan, he learns through play, daily routines, and interaction with family, especially with me and with his siblings. So by observing him, I can see how children, they build skills, they test their ideas, and they learn social rules as well. He actually demonstrates curiosity, independence. He wants to do things independently and cooperation in small ways every day, such as when he share his toys, experiments with his cars, or help with house chores, with like doing house chores. When I do house chores, he tries to help me. So, in this presentation, I will describe the three learning episodes that demonstrate behavioral, cognitive, and socio-cultural theories. And each episode includes a description of what happened, why it fits the chosen theory, and the practical strategies that teachers can use in the classroom. So, before we look at the learning episodes, let's review the three main learning theories. So, the first one is behavioral theory, which actually focuses on observable behaviors and how they can be shaped through the consequences. And classical conditioning is also, which was proposed by Pavlov, and then there's operant conditioning, which was proposed by Skinner. These are the central ideas in behavioral theory. The second one is cognitive theory, which emphasizes how children think, they solve problems, and actively construct knowledge. Piaget introduced stages of cognitive development, while Brunner highlighted active knowledge construction. So the third one is socio-cultural theory, which was introduced by Vygotsky, and he highlighted that learning through social interaction within cultural contexts, and the key concepts include the zone of proximal development, scaffolding, and collaborative learning. So each of these theory, they actually provide, a lens to understand learning and offers teachers practical strategies to support development. Let's look at behavioral theory. So behavioral theory, they focus on observable behavior, as I have discussed earlier, and changes through consequences. So learning happens when a desirable behavior are reinforced or an undesirable behavior are reduced, that is through the consequences. So in practice, teachers can use reinforcement, punishment, and repetition. For example, we can use sticker charts, verbal praise, or daily routines to encourage children to repeat that positive behavior. The strength of behavioral strategy is that progress is measurable and clear. However, I think that there is one limitation, is that it may reduce intrinsic motivation, as children might focus only on rewards rather than understanding the value of behavior itself. So still it is very effective for establishing habits and promoting self-regulation in young children. Okay. And the next one is cognitive theory. So, cognitive theory, it focuses on how learners actively construct knowledge, and key concepts include assimilation, where children add new information to what they already know, and accommodation, where they adjust their thinking when new experiences conflict with their prior knowledge. And teaching strategies include scaffolding, guided problem solving, using of like concept mapping, For example, I'm giving example of my son. When he experiments with his cars, like doing ramps and cars, he actually predicts, observes, and revises his understanding based on the evidence. So cognitive strategies, it helps children develop reasoning, problem solving, and independent learning skills. The next one is socio-cultural theory, and this theory actually highlights that learning is through social interaction, that is within the cultural context. And Vygotsky emphasized the zone of proximal development, where children can do tasks with guidance that they cannot do alone, and scaffolding and collaboration are key strategies. And teachers, they can support learning by organizing collaborative play, facilitating peer teaching, and guided group activities as well. So this approach promotes not only cognitive skills but also social emotional competencies like communication, empathy, and cooperation. So it is particularly valuable in inclusive classrooms where children bring diverse experiences. And now we will see behavioral episodes. So the first one is hand washing. So the first one is behavioral episodes. So for example, when I'm teaching my son Ahan to wash his hands properly after playtime, so hand washing includes several steps like wetting your hand, applying soap, scrubbing, rinsing, and drying. At first he often skipped steps or rushed. For example, he would wet his hands and immediately run off to play, and he would forget to soap it, scrub it, or dry it. And to support him, I actually used verbal praise. I did some clapping and I gave him some stickers whenever he completed all the steps correctly. And I also placed a picture chart near the sink, which actually served as a visual reminder to him of these steps or the sequences that he had to follow, right? And so, practicing consistently after playtime helped him to form the habit. So, over several weeks, he mastered the routine and was able to wash his hands independently. And he even reminded his sister sometimes, showing that he had internalized the behavior. So, this episode, the behavioral episode of hand washing, actually demonstrates behavioral learning because reinforcement and repetition shape a hand's action. And so as teachers, we can apply similar strategies in classroom, that is using visual cues, positive reinforcement, and consistent routines to teach skills like tidying up or following instructions. And the next episode is a cognitive episode. So in here, I have used an example of car ramp experiment. So Ahan, he likes to play with cars. So he often plays with his toy cars and it is on the ramp. So initially, he assumed that all ramps made the cars move at the same speed. So he experimented with the ramps at different angles, observing the car's movement, testing predictions, and adjusting his assumptions. So I actually guided him by asking questions like, what happens if the ramp is steeper? Or like, can we add a block to see what changes? So these prompts actually encourage him to think critically, analyze the cause and effect relationship, and revise his ideas as well. And by the end, Ahan understood that the steeper ramps made the cars move faster. This shows he accommodated new information and revised his mental models. So, cognitive theory fits the episode because learning occurred through active thinking and knowledge construction. Rather than just reinforcement or social guidance, we teachers can replicate these by using hands on experiments, guided questions, and reflection activities in the classroom. And moving on to the third episode, which demonstrates socio-cultural learning. So Ahan, he engaged in role play with his sister and the neighbors' children as well. At first, both children wanted the same role, which could have led to conflict. but with adult guidance, I guided them. So they actually tried to negotiate the roles. They shared the toys and acted out scenarios like cooking and caring for toy babies. So language was central for constructing story and solving problems like conflicts. And by the end, they created a shared narrative, and it showed cooperation, empathy, and problem solving skills. So, social cultural theory applies because learning occurs through guided social interaction, and teachers can support this in classrooms through collaborative activities, guided play, and also through the peer teaching, which also can develop social emotional skills in the children. Moving on to the next slide, which is on the analysis of the episodes, right? So now we let's compare the three episodes. Okay, so for behavioral learning, so hand washing actually demonstrated how reinforcement, repetition, and visual cues shape habits. So in the classroom, teachers can apply similar strategies to teach routine, self regulation, and even safety habits. And moving on to the next theory, cognitive learning, as in the car ramp experiment, it shows how children can actively construct knowledge, that is through observation, experiment, and reflection. And teachers can encourage exploration, guided problem solving, and hands on activities to develop reasoning skills. Moving on to the third one is the social cultural learning. It was illustrated by the role play, and it actually emphasizes collaboration, scaffolding, and social interaction. Teachers can design group projects, peer learning, and guided play to foster communication, empathy, and teamwork. So, together, these episodes show that integrating multiple approaches support holistic child development. Moving on to the next slide, which is on the support from lectures, forums, and personal experiences. So, from my observation, also connect to what we learned in lectures. Lectures highlighted that scaffolding within the zone of proximal development, for example, guided play allows children to attempt tasks they cannot complete independently. An Ahan's role play episode demonstrated this, as adult guidance helped him and peers negotiate roles and co create stories successfully as well. And lectures also emphasize reinforcement as key for habit formation. And this aligns with hand washing, where praise, clapping, and stickers encourage repeated practice. So, from my personal experience, I support cognitive theory because during class we explored Piaget's accommodation concept, and Ahan's Karim experiment show how he modified his understanding based on observation and experiment. So these examples show that theory informs practice, and teachers can integrate behavioral, cognitive, and sociocultural theories to create meaningful, inclusive learning experiences that support children's knowledge, skills, and social competencies. So, in conclusions, each of these learning theory highlights a unique aspect of child development. Behavioral theory, they focus on shaping habits through reinforcement and repetition. Cognitive theory emphasizes active problem solving and knowledge construction. Socio-cultural theory highlights learning through social interaction and guided collaboration. And observing enhanced learning episodes demonstrate how these theories guide teachers in designing engaging, developmentally appropriate, and inclusive learning environments. So, applying strategies from all three perspectives, teachers can support children's holistic growth, including knowledge, skills, and social emotional competency. And finally, observing real life experiences emphasizes the importance of practical, meaningful learning opportunities that connect theory to everyday teaching and practices. And these are the references. And that's all for my presentation today. Thank you. And yeah.